So I'm going to explain the Lorenz curve and the Gini coefficient. So yeah, so the Lorenz curve is a graphical visual element that's used to show the size of distribution of income, and it kind of helps out determining how to distribute income more effectively and more fairly, I guess. But it also just shows visually how much of an inequality gap there is, and you'll be able to tell like that. So it's very convenient. The y-axis is the cumulative share of income received by the people in an income line, so a poverty line. So it's going to be the population of the people that are in the below the poverty line. So they're going to be in poverty and they're receiving income. So that's the share of population, the percentage of population. And then the x-axis is just the percentage of people, cumulative percentage of people. And then if their share of income, so if someone's share of income was identical to the share of the population, they would receive the same percent of, they would receive the same share of income as the population. So in theory, there's just a diagonal straight line, and on this line, which doesn't happen in real world, but the absolute equality line is what it's called. And so if there's 20% of people will receive 20% of distributed income. So they would receive 20%, just like that. Boom, 20%. And then of the total income, they would get 20% of the total income. They wouldn't make that clear. And then, so yeah, so now let me show you a Lorenz curve. So here's the diagonal line, here is the actual line. This is the actual distribution, and or you can also just say it's the actual Lorenz curve. And the shaded area is the inequality gap. And the greater the gap, or the greater the shaded area, the more inequality there is. So on this one, this graph, it doesn't have any numbers, but it just shows a very inequality, like a lot of inequality. That gap is massive, which also means, well, let me just explain this. So here, point A, it would be, so point A at 10% at people and at 10% of cumulative share of income, those 10% of people would receive 10% of total income, because that's the diagonal, that's the perfect world. And then for the Lorenz curve, the actual Lorenz curve, point B, and that percent of income they would receive is 2. So, I mean, I just made these numbers up, but it's generally less. So you're not going to get the exact amount. You're always going to get less. We don't distribute it. We don't distribute income equally. So the Gini coefficient is just going to be, Gini coefficient is the ratio of the shaded area on the Lorenz curve to the triangle formed by to the area of the triangle formed by the diagonal. So what that looks like is we have point F and point G shaded in line. This is the area of the triangle created by the diagonal. F is a shaded area, and the equation that I found online was F divided by F plus G equals to Gini coefficient. And this also tells us inequality. The higher the Gini coefficient, the more inequality. The lower the Gini coefficient, the less inequality. And yeah, it's a mathematical way. And that's it. That's the Gini coefficient. That's the Lorenz curve. Gini coefficient is just the same thing as the Lorenz curve, just mathematical.